This is John for mtgotavern coming at you with another Modern Quick Hits video. This one is 4-color Living End, brought to you by Heibing, Heibing, username on MTGO. This is a 4-color Living End deck that he's done well with a couple of weekends back to back. As a friendly reminder, though, if you do like this kind of modern content, please consider subscribing to the channel and giving us a thumbs up if you like this particular video. And leave a comment down below if you would like to see this particular deck in a league as opposed to the other decks that we have done this week, which would be the 5-color Bring to Light Valky deck and the black-white Devotion deck by Killagerm. So, what is this deck trying to do? This deck is taking the traditional Living End shell, also a shell very similar that was used in the As Foretold Living End decks that use like Electro Balance and stuff to cast the Living Ends. This is more of akin to traditional Living End with the 8 Cascade spells, 4 Living Ends, and also trying to cycle cards in the graveyard and then bring them back with Living End. One of the nice things about this particular version is it does have the 4 copies of Force of Negation. While it does make the deck significantly more expensive, it also gives you protection against, turn 1 Expedition map or, some random piece of graveyard heat that they might have in the main deck. You could possibly, stop a relic or something. Or you can also stop their key play, give yourself the chance to, kill them. Also, you can Violent Outburst on the end of their turn, have Force of Negation backup, kind of give you the ability to protect your combo a little bit, and besides just going for the old Violent Outburst in a turn, untap, cast another Cascade spell for your Living End, and try to kill them that way. For those of you not familiar, Living End basically exiles all creature cards from the graveyards, then all players sacrifice all creatures on the battlefield, and then all the things that were in the graveyard come back into play. Since generally you're going to have more creatures in the graveyard than your opponent, this allows you to kind of kill your opponent with bigger, beefier creatures, especially if you're able to do it on their untap, or if they don't have like a Wrath or something, if you are deplete during your main phase. There is one copy of As Foretold, which I find interesting, that there's just like this one copy to turn your Living Ends that end up in your hand into relevant spells. I wonder if this shouldn't be like 2 or 3 of, but once again, I've never really played this deck, so I don't know. Beyond that, you're just playing every cycling creature within these things. You have Curator of Mysteries, which is a 4/4 flyer that allows you to scry. Glass Dust Hulk, which is just a random 3/4 beater. You have Street Wraith, which is a free cycle, but it does cost you 2 life. Desert Ceradon's a 6/4. Windcaller Aven's a 4/3 that you can cycle to give a creature flying. Posing Venusaur is an interesting one. It's just a 3/6 vigilance creature. And then finally, Straight River Winder is a 5/5 hexproof creature for 7. Not really a big deal, but when you're getting it back as part of a spell as opposed to trying to hardcast it. Alternatively, in some games, you can hardcast some of these creatures, which is a nice thing. If you're playing a long game and someone mulliganed really, really, really low to find their graveyard hate, you can just incidentally win by, casting your Curator of Mysteries, your Glass Dust Hulks, etc. It is a game plan that is available to you, although a little bit rough when you're only running 18 lands, 20 after sideboarding in the post-board games. So that's pretty much what the deck's trying to do in the main deck. Sideboard, Leyline of Sanctities, I can only figure this is primarily here for burn and maybe discard effects. Discard isn't quite very effective, although discard into graveyard hate can be. But burn is historically a pretty bad matchup for most variants of Living End. For those of you who might have seen like our Cascade videos with burn and stuff, Eidolon the Great Revel dealing 4, 6, 8 damage can be quite relevant. Even if you Violent Outburst in the Living End, kill the Eidolon, you've still taken 4 damage. In addition to just the incidental damage burns dealing you, so being able to kind of negate their burn spells is kind of a nice thing. Mystical Disputes, primarily here for the blue decks, because blue decks are also historically a pretty bad matchup for a lot of the Living End decks. They generally resorted to things like Blood Moon and Ricochet Trap to try to kind of even the odds, and even that left you a huge dog, especially if you weren't able to sneak game 1, and they're bringing in Graveyard Hate in addition to additional counter spells. Brazen Borrower, this is an interesting way to be able to get around the Graveyard Hate, allow you to bounce the Graveyard Hate at end of turn, untap, maybe, or cycle, Brazen Borrower, or Petty Theft, and then untap Living End for like 10 power or whatever. It's an interesting card because once again, the restrictions with Living End decks is you can't actually have anything below 3 in your deck. So, it's kind of a problem that you can't actually, have anything that interact with things. You can't play like a Nature's Claim or a Wilt or a Disenchant, even though your colors support that, because you just would cascade into it with your Ardent Pleas, making your Living End significantly worse. Very Macabre. This is a Macabre, however you wish to pronounce it. This is kind of your way of dealing with creatures in your opponent's graveyard, keeping them from getting back like a Tarmogoyf or something, or, a large Death Shadow, Scourge of the Skyclave, or if you've had the Living End once already, just to clear their board to buy yourself some time. This allows you to clear the creatures out of their graveyards. And then finally, Gemstone Caverns. I figure this is primarily here to speed you up on the games where you're on the draw. Sometimes that's can be important, especially in Modern, where some decks are trying to kill you on turn 3, turn 4 still, despite the nerfing of the format. So, interesting deck. We'll see how it does in a match like we do with the rest of our quick hits videos. Alright, we're back for our match with 4-color Living End here on Modern Quick Hits. Lots of cyclers, but no Cascade Spell. Cascade Spell, but no mana. I think on 5 we keep this hand. Let's keep the Force of Negation, because you never know. Mirror match? Seriously? Nope, we're up against spirits. Alright. Get the breeding pool. That was a mistake. I needed to get the white source. Can I get a land drop, please? Alright, we're just going to main phase. This, if they have... Let's see, if they have, whatchamacallit, they have whatchamacallit here. if they have Force of Negation, they have Force of Negation. It's kind of whatever here. Problem is, our opponent could have a lot of different things, so it's kind of like, okay, what am I... Might be okay to leave one Living End out. And then, what's the next most thing? The Ceradons, maybe? So it leaves us with 4, 8, 12, 16 cyclers. Is that enough? Feels like we might be bringing in too much. We're 8, 12, 16, 17 cyclers. Maybe I'm actually supposed to go down the Force of Negations because they don't have as many actual creatures in their deck. I mean, we've got stuff, but we don't have lands, so this hand's just garbage. This hand seems fine. I don't think with this hand we can actually afford to keep Gemstone Caverns. Just too many resources. So try it like this. Do I force a turn 1 Vial? That's an interesting question. We have a Mausoleum Wonder, so it doesn't matter if we had turn 1 Vial or not. Yeah, that's... That's going to be a tough start to beat. Not going to lie. Guess we let this go because there's a decent chance they have a Lord on the back end. Basic planes here, I guess. Oh, that was dumb. You know, when you're switching decks so much, sometimes you underestimate like how many like small mistakes you make playing with a deck. Like land sequencing and whatnot. Like I fetched this to save life total, and then in the end it was just the wrong move because you know, yeah, rattle chains, kind of whatever, which means they can play anything in instant speed, so we're probably dead here. Feel like we have to counter this one. I think we're dead here, right? Two, 4, 9. Yeah, we're exactly dead. Alright. Well, maybe I don't need Brazen Barbers in this matchup. Force of Negation is actually kind of questionable because we don't know if they have actual hard counters in their deck. So maybe I go down like 2 Force of Negations, bring back in like 2 Ceradons or something. Like the Fairy Macabres are kind of whatever, you know. They're reasonable in some spots if we get into a longer, grindier game. Definitely can't keep a hand with only 1 living end left in our deck. This hand just does nothing. This hand kind of does stuff, but it's also like a bit of a risk. What am I putting back here is the question mark. Curator. Interval's annoying. Like, very, very annoying. but not much we can do about it, unfortunately. I did leave in Brazen Burrowers, right? Yeah. Fortunately, that resolves. It's possible we're just jamming hard cast Curator of Mysteries. Seems dubious. That's an interesting one. I think we actually jammed that instead. What's funny is I don't actually care about this, but it screws with them just enough. That's kind of annoying. Spirits and all their little tricks sometimes difficult to play around. Gonna say you want to attack with Mausoleum Wanderer, although if I draw a living end off the top, really wanted them to activate their vial there. Because they would have activated their vial, we could have Violent Outburst in response and still paid for. I mean, we gotta do it. It's not exactly my favorite timing in the world, but especially if they have another spirit of some kind. It's possible I was supposed to do this at some other point. Okay, not conceding until you actually show me another spirit. Yeah, that'll do it. Alright, kind of an interesting game. A little bit of a punt there in game number 2. I don't know that it mattered with the fetching of the planes, but certainly didn't help our progression of cycling things into stuff. And then obviously the rest in peace game 3 when we're already mulliganing to 5. You know, this deck's a lot more intricate than it looks on first glance. I don't know that I've ever actually played a Living In variant. I might have played the Jun version like maybe once in a league or something, but I don't think I've ever been an aficionado of Living In. But, you know, there's a little bit of like not knowing what to mulligan into, etc. And then obviously I just seem to be making a little bit like a punt or two per match lately, and that's kind of frustrating, but, you know, it's one of the things about playing different decks is sometimes it's nice to learn, you know, different things going on with different decks, and then obviously, you know, getting a match like this is interesting. I did try to record 2 other matches. Like, I normally don't go back and re-record matches for the quick hits, but the first match was against Tron, and my opponent literally kept Natural Tron plus Relic, and it's like, yeah, that's not an interesting matchup at all. And basically they just mulled into their Graveyard Hate or Ugin, and that's kind of game. And then the other matchup I played was against the new variant of Ad Nauseam. It's really like a reworked Thassa's Oracle Dimir Inverter deck, and it just kind of you know, is this weird kind of hybrid combo version now. So I didn't think either one of those were particularly interesting. The Spirits matchup's a lot more interesting in what was going on. A little bit more play to it. So I figured this matchup's a little bit better to showcase. So anyway, well, thank everybody for tuning in. If you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing to the channel, giving us a thumbs up, and if you want to see this deck in more action, please don't forget to let me know down in the comments. And also, you know, if you like these kind of like short videos where I go through interesting decks in the format, don't forget to leave that in the comments down below as well. And I'll see you in the next video.